and this is for the Environmental Exposure and Whole Health Lifestyle Panel, right?
That it is.
My name is Cecil MacIntosh, and I'm filling in for someone. So, I think we have how many people? Anyhow, we play with the time. So I'm going. The first question is going to go to Terri,
Okay.
and the first question that I would love to ask you is, why should someone begin if they feel overwhelmed by trying to live healthy, a whole health lifestyle?
Right. I get this question often because I talk about my 8 pillars of health, and people are asking me, well, which one is most important? And I'm like, well, it really depends on which one you're going to do and which one you need the most. So, first of all, I always, even for myself, I start with hydration. Just that one simple thing. Over 70% of the people are usually walking around somewhat mildly dehydrated. So there's a perfect place to start, is start drinking your water. And so a lot of the questions that I get is, well, how much do I really need to drink? And as a general rule of thumb, I'll say take your body weight in pounds and divide that by 2, and that'll give you an idea in ounces of how much liquids to be drink. Then I get the question, well, does coffee and tea count? And I say, not so much, because those are very dehydrating. So if you drink those, it's not like you can substitute alcohol or coffee, for example. So to keep that in mind. And then also, a really important thing that a lot of people don't do is they don't add salt to their water. So what I love to do, for example, and I'll just, even this morning, I had a gal who I was talking with, and she said, I don't know where to begin. And I said, how about just starting with some warm water in the morning? Get yourself a tea kettle, warm up some water, and do 2 cups of water with a little bit of salt, half of a lemon, squeeze the juice of a half a lemon into that water, and take some mineral trace drops and actually add a fourth to a half teaspoon in your water, then 2. And keep doing that throughout the day to really get the the hydration into your cells. That's what you really need. And a lot of people, if they don't do that part, then they're just going to urinate it out. So you really want to get those electrolytes into your body with the salt. So that's what I would say. Start basic with something like that. And another simple thing a lot of people have a hard time with is eating real food. Just think of real food as being what we're talking about. If it's grown in the garden and you take it from the garden to your plate, that's the best food you can put into your body, right? So staying away from these refined carbs and sugars, those are just going to create addiction, and they're going to create an inflammation in your body. They're going to age you quicker. They're going to give you brain fog, anxiety, all these things we don't want. So if we just stick to eating real food, which is a very simple thing, right? But so it's not rocket science. So it's just those 2 things are really important. And I would say for the third thing is, make yourself a bedtime that you're going to stick to, and have that be between at least between 10 and 11 p.m. And don't go any past that. That's not a good thing to do, because your sleep is really a superpower for yourself. Okay.
Quick,
So I
quick
would say
question.
those.
Quick
Yeah.
question for you.
Yeah.
I'm curious. You said add salt to the water. Can you kind of explain to us the significance of that?
Your body requires salt. Okay. So, yep, all mammals, like you'll see animals, they'll go to great lengths just to get some salt, into the body. And we typically, if we're eating a whole foods diet, we typically don't get enough salt from our fruits and our vegetables. But the medical community will kind of advise people to stay away from salt as a general rule, just because we had been eating so much refined carbs and sugar. So there's a sweet spot for salt, okay? Too much is no good, too little is no good. But we need salt. It's critical for our heart and our body to function. We need those electrolytes that come from the combination of the salt, the potassium, and the magnesium.
Thank you. That's I didn't know that. Second question, why are some often overlooked habits that have the biggest impact on whole health?
Okay, so a big one that I discovered even just last year was grounding or earthing. You know, just 10-15 minutes of getting your bare feet on the ground to absorb the magnetic force of the earth is very great for reducing inflammation. It's great for building up your energy. And it's just a very relaxing thing for the nervous system, too. So that's a very simple thing to do. If you're in a colder climate, it's a little bit of a challenge during a lot of times of the year. But if you start doing that in the spring, it only takes 10 to 15 minutes. And they also do have grounding mats that you can, buy. But we're sticking to some of these things that can have a huge impact on you. When you do grounding, you can get better sleep at night. You can just have a more regulated um, a nervous system. Emotional regulation is so super important. And then also deep breathing. Do some deep belly breathing. It can be so powerful. Again, it's free. Most people are not breathing the way that God intended us to be breathing, was taking those deep breaths in and just really getting that air into the tummy, right? And doing that on a regular basis. Now, if you watch, for example, a baby who's breathing, you will automatically see their little tummy go up and down as they're breathing. And that's how we're supposed to be breathing, is that way. But we get caught up in what we're doing all the time that we forget to sometimes just stop and breathe. So, and then the third thing I would say for this is to make sure you are spending time nurturing your relationships and making meaningful connections. Just having a reach out to a person, having a social engagement that's meaningful to you is so nourishing for the soul, right? So enjoy the laughter and the play. One of the things that I love to do is I'll just listen to somebody, even comedy, just for a few minutes. Go to a comedy station and just listen because it makes me laugh and I feel even connected to the person even that way, just for a few minutes. But also things like, engaging with your family, telling jokes with each other, using humor. It can really just help the nervous system out. So those are some just free, easy things.
Thanks, Terry. That's beautiful. And the last question I have for you is how does your gut health connect to other areas of whole health like mood, energy, and immunity?
Sure. So it's really important to realize that 70% of your immune system, sometimes I've even heard is even more like 90%. So I'll say 70 to 90% of your immune system is in your gut. Okay. So, and over 90% of the serotonin, which is your feel good hormones, are created in your gut. So it makes so much sense to focus in on gut for your overall health function. So not only will focusing on your gut health help you with your physical health, your overall physical well-being, but it's really going to help you with your mental well-being as well as your emotional well-being too, because of those neurotransmitters being created in the gut, right? So that's why it's really important to focus in on how can I do the best things for my gut. And like we talked about earlier in different areas here, the microbiome. Most of your microbiome is in your gut. And you want to think of not just feeding yourself, but feeding those trillions of microorganisms that are making up your gut. Those things are your friends and you want to treat them well. So if you put in toxic food, for example, so your refined sugars, your refined carbs, things with a lot of chemicals in it, you're going to kill the good guys off and you're going to create more pathogens in your body that's going to put your gut out of balance. So then you're going to not have the energy, because in your microbiome, that's where the energy gets produced for you. Okay. So that's why it's so important to go back to eating the real food for gut health, because it's just going to help you with your foundation of your overall health. So it's not just about the physical, like I said, but it's also about the emotional and the cognitive well-being as well.
Terri, this was illuminating for me.
Oh, good.
And I thank you because it's so aligned with what I teach. So it's beautiful. So if you don't mind, I'm going to move on from you now to Cheryl. Cheryl here.
Yes. Hi.
Hi,
Um,
Cheryl. How are you this morning?
I'm doing well.
Okay. So the first awesome question I have for Cheryl, can you name several areas where we may be getting toxic chemicals that we may not be aware of?
Of course. So I help people with detoxing and going to the root cause of things.
Mm-hmm.
And people hear about water, our foods, our air, and our cleaning supplies are, toxic. But what other places might there be that we're not looking at? And one follows Terri's first question, she had mentioned about sleep, getting the enough sleep. If you're not sleeping well, you might want to look at the current that's going around your room. Some people have electrical boxes on the other side of their, wall of their bedroom. Some are charging their phone in their bedroom, and that electrical current is going around all night, and that does affect your sleep. So you might, watch. Some people even turn off the electric to the bedroom overnight. So that might be one thing you want to try. If you're having problems sleeping, turn off all the electric in your room. Another is hobbies. Hobbies such as working with metals, even you're working with metals, you're getting it on your hands. You might not be washing your hands enough. Even bicycling, if you're bicycling out in the country where they're spraying the crops, or they just sprayed, you're inhaling that air. And hiking, you've got the ticks. So there's always places to be aware of where we might be bringing in these toxins. And I have a story that do people look in your workplace if you do work in a building? Um, how is that air that you're breathing? I happen to work with another person. We started a business, and it was in one of these buildings where all these small businesses, like starter businesses, were renting space. And we didn't get one of the nice offices with the view. We had an inside unit. And one Monday we walked in and we were wondering why some of the paper was kind of wrinkled. And then we started looking at the pictures, and the pictures were kind of wrinkled. And then we looked up, and the vents were totally black. So it had happened over time that mold was building. And we also, had this like kind of a sniffle, like, yeah, we got something going on, but can't figure out what it is. So you never know what's happening in an establishment in a building that you're in for a period of time. How is that air quality and what else is going in there?
I think a lot of it too is an awareness. You walk into the room, you notice something is different, and maybe to be aware to asking questions. I think that's a part of the challenge sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes nobody wants to talk to you and say, well, what are you talking about? There's nothing wrong. And the next question, the next amazing question is, for someone that's 50 years old, is it too late to take measures to lessen toxins to make a difference?
Of course not. It's never too late. Getting educated like we do, we're constantly educating ourselves and we're making steps to make ourselves healthier. So going through the process of learning what toxins not to bring in, like, eating the more natural foods and less prepared foods, but also you're also looking at furniture that you're bringing into the house, the chemicals, that you're using to clean or wash your clothes, stuff like that. And of course, your air and your water. But knowing that you need to lessen that, and depending on the person, if they have health problems. So if they seem to be fine, then taking those measures, and these are like, you can't make changes all at once. You're not going to throw your furniture out that has formaldehyde in it. And you're not going to tear up your carpet and stuff like that. I have a terrible experience with carpet being put in. I got so sick. But you need to make steps, and you need to be aware and make those changes. Now, things that somebody, if they are ill, they need to really get down. You can make those changes, but you got to get down to the root cause. And some of the causes, it wasn't our fault. It was passed down to us, through our mother, and things like amalgam fillings and different things that were passed down. If your mother had amalgam fillings, with the mercury, that mercury was passed down, and mercury, goes to your head as far, and also glyphosate and heavy metals. So if one, really wants to do something, they really need to look at their past, where they live, especially if they've lived in a lead house or a moldy house. I mean, mold is a big culprit. And, there's a whole thing on mold as far as where you can find it in the house, and the preparation that you just don't get something fixed, your pipe fixed because it was leaking, and you just clean up the mold with some chlorine product. You really need to look at the walls. You need to look at how much damage the mold has done. And I mean, there's houses that everything that was plastic, that couldn't be cleaned by a professional cleaner, had to be thrown out. So if there is a mold problem, and it might not even be in your house, it might be in a business, you might have to go through and throw all that paperwork out and start over, because those items that collect the particles are just going to keep recirculating in the house.
So just button in here. So let's assume it's your home, and are these toxins, who would you call for help to help? Like, say you want to get somebody come in, have a look at it, and give you an overall perspective. Who would you call?
Right. Yeah, there's professional mediators
Mhm.
that deal with the mold. And I'll just go quickly on, everything has to be taken out.
Right.
The ductwork either has to be cleaned, I mean, I'm not a professional mold
I understand.
specialist, but the mold specialist would dictate whether the ductwork has to be taken out, depending on how much damage, or it has to be professional clean. The everything has to be cleaned, all the surfaces and everything, and some things can't be brought back in the house. So if someone has a lot of mold, and they find, especially black mold, and the kids and the parents will know that they just can't get healthy. You know, they're always continuously sick. And just to solve that one problem, excuse me, where the black mold was is not going to end. That the mold is already in the air, it's on surfaces, it's on places that can't be cleaned, things need to be cleaned out. So the mold specialist would go through the process, and if they say, if you have a really bad mold problem and they say, oh, we're just going to fix this, we're going to take this wall out, fix this problem, and you'll be fine, you need to go to someone else.
I'm curious, what can you just tell me a little bit about black mold? You mentioned black mold consistently. I'm just curious.
Yeah, black mold's like one of the worst to have in your house. There's lots of mold. You know, we have blue cheese and there's mold in there, and I do eat that. But there's different molds to different degrees. I actually have a background in real estate and did rehabbing. So I was excited to get a moldy house because I knew I could get a good deal and I knew I could fix it up right. But yeah, some mold is not going to be affected, but you want to get rid of the source to where that mold is coming from. And you can't just fix the pipe and clean. You need to, it might be a matter of taking out a wall, and you know, there's cameras you can put up in the walls, in the ceiling, to see if there's mold up there. And I let the professionals handle that.
Thank you very much. This was, again, way over my pay grade, but I enjoy hearing your comments. So thank you. And next I'm going to Maricel. I hope I pronounced your name correctly.
That's perfect.
Okay, so let me see what amazing questions are here for Maricel. The first question is, what does reversing biological age actually mean? And how can lifestyle changes make it happen?
Thank you, Cecil, for your question. I'm going to introduce myself first. My name is Maricel Rocha. I am from Argentina, currently living in California. And I have a science background in biochemistry and biotechnology. And I help people to extend their health span, which is the time that they are alive in optimal conditions of health. So now going to your question, you asked me, what is biological, what does it mean to reduce biological age?
Yes.
So I'm going to talk about the concept of age reversal and why it's so popular lately, right? When, you know, we have this mindset that, oh, aging is kind of mandatory, you're going to go through that, it's natural, and we accept that aging is something natural, right? But the good news is that maybe time cannot be stopped, maybe your chronological age cannot be changed, but you have another age, and that's a biological age, which is the way your physiology is manifesting. It's the mileage in your car, right? Not the year you bought your car. It's the mileage, it's the used. So that biological age now can be measured because of the new technology that we have. And number two, that is the age, the biological age that I help people with to reduce and rejuvenate. So that's why we call it age reversal. We're not reducing chronological age, we are reducing our biological age. So you might be in a body, you know, you might be 50 years old, but inside a body that biologically is 40, right? That would be great because that means that we are aging slowly. That's what we want. And that is totally possible. Now, where's the connection with lifestyle? So let me tell you a little story to understand why this is so powerful. 20 years ago, actually 25 5 years ago, when the Genome Project was trying to sequence all the DNA in the human body, in our cells, scientists thought that they would understand all causes for diseases. But that didn't happen, because what manifests in our body is not a consequence directly of the sequence of our genes, but how we regulate those genes. We may have good genes, but if they are not active, it doesn't help you. You may have bad genes, right? But if they are silenced, they're not bothering you. So we understood finally, after so many years, that the real deal in manifesting, in showing in your physiology any disease, well, there are exceptions, but I'm talking here in general terms, are a consequence of how we regulate our gene expression. And what are the things that regulate our gene expression? Lifestyle. And that's a whole new world of epigenetics. So now, like, we are, learning in more knowledge and learning in more experience. And what it used to be genetic, just the sequence, now we're into the field of regulation of those genes that now we know as epigenetic. And epigenetic means above the genes. So there are things and signals and tags and molecular mechanisms that are regulating the expression of those genes. So I'm all excited today because we are all talking about environment. We're all talking about lifestyle and things we can do to improve our health. Well, there's direct evidence that it's about lifestyle. And inside lifestyle, there are many things, like you already shared, Terri, and many others. But one specific one that I want to highlight during my time here with all of you is environmental exposure. And why is that important? Because, as I said, epigenetically, it affects tremendously the way we express our genetics, and we can function as human beings.
Okay. That was just like, a lot of this stuff is like way over my pay grade, but I'm enjoying it. It's so wonderful to get new information. So the next question is, how is metabolic health the key to slowing and even reversing aging?
Thank you for that question. So what has metabolic health to do with aging and all we're talking here? Well, metabolism relates to the way we generate energy. How we bring that energy from food, from the air, and how can we convert those things into a form of energy for our body to function. And what we discover is that when we make this process efficient, we can prevent a lot of trouble and diseases as we age. Specifically, metabolic health to me starts with how we regulate insulin, which is the hormone that is being released every time we eat carbs, for example, or every time we get into a stressful discussion, or every time you're doing exercise. There are many ways that are affecting the way our insulin levels go up and down during the day. If we can find a way to control that fluctuation of insulin, we can actually prevent a lot of things that comes as a consequence of inflammation, for example. Every time we have a glucose spike, we get inflamed. And all of that glucose that is circulating is getting converted into fat that we don't want, right? We want to eliminate fat. We want to burn the visceral fat that is creating so much inflammation in our body. So if we can regulate that insulin and the way it behaves, then we will be supporting our immune system. We will be reducing oxidative stress and so many mechanisms that are actually hallmarks of aging. And that's why the connection is very strong, because aging is actually a consequence of systems that are not functioning well. And there are 4 chronic diseases that appear as a consequence of a metabolic dysfunction. One of them is cancer. The other one is cardiovascular disease. Of course, diabetes type 2, and then all the group of cognitive declination like dementia, Parkinson, Alzheimer. So all of those diseases in our society, we accept as, oh, of course, if we are aging, or of course, we're like accepting because we see it around us. But the good news is that you may not live in a blue zone. Have you heard about the blue zones? I think we mentioned
I haven't heard
that.
of blue zone. Talk to me about it.
All right. So there are people who are 100-year-old and even older that are enjoying and thriving. They are in perfect health in their minds, in their brain, in their physiology, in their bodies, and they're enjoying life. And so we have so many things to learn from them. But specifically in terms of their metabolic health, they move consistently, they eat whole foods, they don't overeat, they're not smoking, they're not drinking, right? So there are many things that we can understand and learn from these people and try to, create our own path, that it doesn't have to be, I'm not, just because my parents went through diabetes, it doesn't mean that I will have to go through, because I get it, it's genetic, but the most influence comes actually from the environment and the way you create your own lifestyle and make your daily choices.
Maricel, I am curious. So insulin seems to be the culprit, the root cause here. Is that correct?
Yes, it's insulin actually, because it would say insulin is like the director of the orchestra, right?
Yep.
So if you can have that under control, then everything else that depends on will be adapted, right? And as I said, there are many things we can do to regulate insulin. Your circadian rhythm, for example, is linked to how we regulate our insulin. So if you go to bed one day at 8 p.m., but the next day you are not sleeping until midnight and you have those fluctuations, then of course the way you regulate your insulin and everything else, it's going to be not optimal, right? So I would start with the circadian rhythm and adopt habits that are like a routine. So your system get used to have breakfast at the same time, use the bathroom at the same time, and drinking at the same time, and hydration. When you think that your system, needs a routine, like little toddlers, right? You give them a routine, they're happy. You don't give toddlers a routine, they throw a big tantrum. So inside your body is the same thing. We need to train ourselves. So with time, over time, it's magic. Everything accommodates.
Well, a couple of things that come to mind is, one, I attempt, though it doesn't have a lot, to eat at 5 o'clock every evening and don't eat after that. And I find that works beautifully for me because it gives me a 12 hours of fasting. Does that make sense?
That's a perfect example, because the time that you are in fast is the optimal time. You want to do that. Some people skip breakfast, for example, thinking, oh, I have my 12 hours. But the way your metabolism works, it's going to get benefits, but you will get more benefits if you start your fast earlier the day before, right? Why? Because your quality of sleep will be optimal. And sleep, specifically the deep stage of sleep, is where the magic happens in your brain in terms of restoration, regeneration, and waste disposal, and all the things that needs to happen to make your brain work efficiently happens during that phase.
And the other thing that comes to mind is that I think that we come from this belief that when we get a certain age that we are old and there's nothing that we can do about it. Does that play into this whole aging process?
Yes, that's a matter of mindset, and that's why I bring the blue zone as an example, because what could be a better evidence, a living evidence that this is possible, right? It's not a, hyperbaric chamber. It's not a red light or any kind of interventions that require invasive procedures or any kind of sophistication, new trend. No. When you look at those people, living in those blue zones, these 5 areas in the world, they don't do crazy things, right? They have normal lives, but their mindset, the way they think, the way they cultivate joy, that's what makes them so special.
Well, I think to add to that is one of the things about those people is because I'm from Barbados and I'm kind of understanding what you're talking about, is that they listen to their bodies.
Yes, I'm sure they're not scrolling their social media, right?
And why I say that, because I find that I believe that all the messages all the things we need to get, we get in messages from our bodies, but most of the times we are not aware and we don't listen and we don't know what to do.
Yeah, that's right. That's why mindfulness to me is my favorite technique to connect to our bodies. And actually interview our needs, our wants, our the whatever is happening physiologically. Once you become aware, once you connect to your body, you will develop that inner intuition that will manifest in, oh, I'm craving veggies, I'm craving. You will, some people may laugh at me, but I crave salads every day because I train myself to have a giant salad at lunch. And that keeps me chewing forever, so that I don't have I don't have a glucose spike, right? Because I take time to eat my giant salads. And sometimes I'm out, and if I'm eating out and I order a salad, they bring me just like a little portion of salad, right? No, I'm craving salads because I adapted to have that every day, and it's a routine. It's part of my routine now. And if I cannot have a big salad, maybe I'll complement at night, but it's one of my cravings.
Okay. Maricel, the last question I have for you is, what is mental fitness? Or sorry, why is mental fitness just as important as physical fitness for healthy aging?
Thank you, Cecil. Mental fitness refers to your ability to create positive outcomes and grow a positive mindset to face life, to face challenges, to face our everyday things. And the concept is brought by positive intelligence, and basically means that if we can train our mindset to find gifts and opportunities in everything that happens, and if we basically train ourselves and learn how to be optimistic, and we can use jokes as other people were sharing here, if we can train our mindset again to be positive, we are massively reducing the levels of cortisol in our system. And cortisol, if there are 2 hormones that we have to learn how to control as we age, insulin is the first one, and then cortisol. But they're both equally important. When we reduce stress, then everything functions much efficiently and much better in our physiology. And then we slow our aging.
Well, I cannot agree with you more, because I spent over 15,000 hours teaching relaxation. So I'm right there with you.
Yes, and did you know I just released a last blog on telomeres. And the lady who discovered the telomerase, Elizabeth Vernon, I don't remember the last name. She did an experiment and she measured the length of the telomeres. The telomeres are those little ends of the chromosomes that help with the division of cells. So as we grow, as we age, those telomeres are getting short every time, right? Well, she discovered that some people who are under very much stress have those telomeres shorter than people who are, more optimistic. But the experiment that she did was really cool, because She took a pool of moms who were taking care of kids with special needs. So that it's a very stressful situation, right? Being a parent or take how do you say that? Caregiver
Yeah.
of someone who needs, more than the usual things. She found that the moms who were really stressed and who consider her parenting as being very stressful, they have their telomeres short compared to other moms who were doing the same thing with the same challenges, who had a different perception because they were feeling blessed to have those challenges, and they were totally different. They reframe the challenge into a, wow, I'm so blessed that I have this challenge because this gives me opportunity to develop empathy and love better, blah, blah, blah. Guess what? It was not the stressor, the thing, because they had longer telomeres. That is predicting longer life, right? It's the perception of stress.
Well, what I always say to most people is that everything that happens to us is a message. It doesn't matter what it is. But we need to look at not at what's happening. What is the lesson that I need to learn from this?
Mm.
And the moment you can start looking at exactly what's happening here, as soon as you start looking at the lesson, there's no negative anymore. It's an amazing understanding, a way for you to grow and expand. But we don't look at it that way. We look at, oh, there's a problem, there's a problem, there's a problem. No, it's there to help you grow and expand, right? And so, thank you very much.
Thank you, Cecil. You said it very well.
I think I have a bit more time. So does anybody have any questions to the panel about anything at this moment? Because we have some time left.
And it might be fun for people to come off and ask them off mute and ask them directly.
Yep.
So I know Elizabeth had she had a lot of good questions.
I have always been curious about everything, and I think that is one way to be childlike and learn and grow. So I have a question for Maricel. Is there any nutritional deficiency that would prevent the ability of the body to express a beneficial gene?
Oh, yes, many. And what just comes to my mind is, phytonutrients and polyphenols and all the antioxidants that we get from plants. They actually directly affect the regulation of our genes. And for example, remember Jocelyn, no, what was her name? This actress who decided to go on a double mastectomy because she had the BRCA gene. Now we know that you can have that gene, but if you regulate that gene, in a positive way with food, with antioxidants, with polyphenols, you're not going to develop the disease. So that was not needed, but we didn't know that when this happened. I don't know how many years ago, but this is the new frontier in science that is actually connecting exactly what are the nutrients that are directly impacting the gene expression, so that we keep those bad genes silenced and we activate the good genes for protection. Because cancer, for example, is something that every day we grow and develop cells that are not right in the way they behave. But our immune system is in charge to correct those things, right? So if we are exposed to those nutrients that are essential to regulate genes, then we can afford. I mean, we can be exposed to germs or viruses, and we'll be strong because we are directing our nutrition to optimize the way we regulate that gene expression.
And could I add to that? When we have so many toxins in our body, if you go down to the cellular level, I mean, just think of a cell as a ball, and the outside of the cell membrane has these receptors that take in, the needed nutrients for the cell, but toxins block that. So if you are if you're taking in all these toxins, and you would know that you're not doing well, you got inflammation in the body, or you have dementia or Parkinson's, things like that, you know that you need to get rid of the toxins that are covering the receptors on that cell. And I mean, so that way, like Marcel was saying, your cells aren't taking in that protein, taking in the nutrients to keep that cell alive, and the cell, will die.
Yeah, I'll add just a little thing. Last year, at the end of the year, the company that I work with developed a test that measures all nutritional deficiencies that you may have, and it's a incredible test. Sorry. And the beauty of this is that it's done through something called DNA methylation. And in the report, you will receive all the things that your body missing. It could be minerals, it could be antioxidants, it could be vitamins, and so on. And so I think that, science is now growing and going into that direction of not only bioindividuality, which is what makes you different from everybody else here, but what makes you different now from your own version last year, or even in 3 months, right? Because we are a universe that is super unique in this. If I could take a snapshot of you right now, it's unique. The mix of everything that is you in your brain, in your mind, in your emotion, in your soul, in your physiology is unique. And what I like about this test is that it projects where you're going unless you change your lifestyle, unless you change and supplement. I'm not talking about supplements like little pills. Supplement in the sense of, okay, if this test shows that you are low on vitamin C, for example, or antioxidants, or you can use whole foods to focus on those deficiencies. So your whole machine works more efficiently and corrects all, inflammation and metabolic dysfunction and on and on.
A question for you. If someone has a deficiency, have an issue with thyroid, how would they, like, what test? Well, they can take a test, but how would they, is that, I know it can be fixed. So how would you suggest going about that?
Yeah, thanks for the question. What I do is most of the time my clients come with their, the clinical panel. So we understand where they are from direct blood samples, right? They just share with me the last physical markers that they had. And then of course, if there's a diagnosis on hypothyroidism or hypo or hyper, right?
Yeah.
I help them with this epigenetic testing, which reveals the projection on their health span. How can we prevent things to get worse, or, chronic diseases appear, compared to where we are, and what are the lifestyle interventions that we can do so that the person can manage any condition. But, I'm not a doctor, I'm a biotechnologist. So I understand about molecular biology, which most doctors don't. So I'm in the prevention field. I cannot treat diseases or manages, but my job as a lifestyle optimizer will be to say, okay, Cecil, maybe in your clinical labs, you have markers that are showing that everything is normal, for example, right? But the epigenetic testing is projecting that you are going towards developing, let's say, type 2 diabetes or pre-diabetes. So when I see those results and compared to your real results, I'm like, okay, let's prevent that to happen, because I don't want you to have that diagnosis in 7 years or 5 years from now. So you start changing now. And that applies for, all systems, thyroid and blood and immune and all the systems in the body.
So how would you suggest that someone, like say with the thyroid situation, because I have a friend of mine that has that, how would you suggest that that be addressed? And like you would have to get your blood work first of all.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Get your blood work, and then what's the next step?
If they discuss with their doctor, if they don't have any diagnosis or it could be Hashimoto, it could be, you know, you don't know. I don't know until, you know, if the doctor actually have a diagnosis, then I work with that person around that. But let's assume they don't know what's going on, right? Well, and if they take an epigenetic test, it will show in the report things that are, you know, showing trends in this
Gotcha.
or that. And that's the one that I can say, okay, you know, you're not regulating very well these genes. And I also work with genetic studies that I offer also in my practice, and I'm done also with myself, because it comes with the way your hardware is, right? So you can learn if you're doing keto, for example, it's very trendy, everybody's doing, but sometimes you may have a gene that, you know, you cannot break carbs, or you know, you have to understand the way your DNA works. And then once you have that information, then you adapt with lifestyle to make the whole process the most efficiency you can, right? The most efficiently in terms of how you work and how you remain in health until you die. So your health span matches your lifespan, and you don't have to suffer or being in pain or depend on others or suffer the fact that you don't even remember the people you love, right? So all of those things can be prevented.
So to answer your question, Maricel, it's the epigenetic testing that's necessary after you've gotten the blood work, correct?
Yes, it's for your specific question, that would be my suggestion. So get your panel, understand what's going on right now, and then get the epigenetic testing, because that will give you the bird view in your future, because it measures and it predicts your health span. And that way, with that combination of information, you can develop a rejuvenation journey specifically for that person.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. This was just illuminating for us. So, Cindy, where am I now?
Okay, well, there's a couple other questions in, but I'd like people to come off chat if they want to ask them directly.
I have a question, Cindy. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Please
Okay,
give it.
this is for Maricel. It's on this level of epigenetic testing. How much is the cost and what is involved in this testing?
Thanks for your question, Gabo. Happy to hear you.
Yes.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, this is expensive because it's new, but I'm sure that over time it's gonna get better. So I offer the aging epigenetic test for $997. And it comes with an interpretation of those results and a plan, a rejuvenation plan that you can choose to do it in 3 months, 6 months. And then I have another program that includes the epigenetic testing on aging. It comes with your biological age, it comes with the pace of aging, the length of your telomeres, and everything related to aging, plus everything related to your nutrition. So this combo that comes with 11 reports on aging and a huge report on everything on nutrition, and it also includes toxicity, like forever chemicals that you may not know, but you probably were exposed as a child to Teflon and other chemicals. So it comes with that as well. It comes with a comprehensive collection of data. That goes for $14.97. You get the test. In about 3 to 5 weeks after that, you get the results, and we meet and we go deeply into all the meaning of those reports. And then we create together something that is doable, where we say, okay, let's aim to reduce 5 years your biological age, rejuvenate 5 years in the next 6 months. What's going to happen in the first months? Okay, let's identify the organ systems that are aging faster, and let's focus there. And then the second month, we're gonna, and we play with different lifestyle interventions. I have 7, nutrition, sleep, and exercise, and all of those things. Everybody will visit those places, but it will be a different journey for each person, of course.
Yep.
So, and the sample that you take, let me just show. This is the new test that comes with both the True Age and True Health, all about aging, all about nutrition. It takes just a few drops of your blood from a finger prick. You put on a little card, you send it in the mail, and about 3 to 5 weeks later, we get together with the results interpretation and a rejuvenation plan.
And so it's 1497, 1497
For the combo.
for the combo.
Yeah.
And what is the upfront cost versus over a couple of months? Is that a payment plan?
Well, no, because the test is expensive.
Okay.
You can buy the test on your own online, and this test is offered for $850.
Okay.
But you don't get all the reports. You don't get a person that will help you interpret with the interpretation, and you don't get a plan. Which is the beauty of this, is to design a plan that works for you.
Okay. Because I want to recommend it to my brother who had this thyroid problem. That's very interesting. So I would recommend do that thing for 1,500, but he really need to come up with the whole 1,500 up front.
Well, let me talk to him, because I need to cover the price of the test and the shipping and everything related to that. And then, the part that is for my professional service as interpret and design and meet with him, then maybe we can create a payment plan for that part.
Yeah, that's important, because I have to say, okay, you pay $1,000, that gives you the first mini consultation, and then $500 within 1 month or something like that, to make it
Yes,
like
it's
to
totally doable. Mhm.
yeah, to swallow the pill. A little bit of sugar make the pill go down.
Yeah, I know it is expensive, and I hear that all the time. But when you think about the value, how
Oh.
much did you pay to learn how many years of health you still have, and what are the things you need to change in your lifestyle to increase that time? And to me, that's priceless.
It's priceless. I totally agree. For me, it's worth it. But I know what I have to deal with. Actually, it's his wife who is going to say, how come it's so expensive? Okay, but but anyway, thank you so much. It's
Thank you.
very valuable. The whole thing about epigenetics. Finally, today I get a feeling for it. Thank you.
Thank you. I
just
know we have to
wanna-
move on. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I just wanted to say, as somebody who's reversed her own thyroid issue, I would recommend doing the basics very first, like getting rid of the refined sugar and carbs. Number 1 thing, if you have a thyroid issue. Second thing, figure out a way to manage your stress. That was my issue. When the thyroid, it's not a thyroid issue usually, it's a whole body system issue that happens to be affecting the thyroid and expressing itself in the thyroid. So, doing the basic health things will help that person, even if they don't want to have they don't have the resources right now to go through with the testing. You can start with basic nutrition, hydration, sleep, exercise, stress management. And supplementation is really important too. A lot of people with a thyroid issue are low in iodine. So that can be very, very good too. So and magnesium. People don't think about magnesium, but that is such a mineral that's deficient in a lot of people because people are stressed out and the body utilizes magnesium very, very quickly. So helping that person's, if they're having a lot of stress in their life, that can be throwing their thyroid function off.
Thanks for sharing. But if they already had an operation to remove the glands, right? So it's kind of toward the end of, and he's 85 or something like that. So, you know, so I want to improve his lifestyle.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, I'll talk to Maricel.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.